First of all, this illustrates how humbling economics is. So I'm humbled right now, and I feel like I'm standing on quicksand. But that said, these numbers are more consistent with the more recent GDP numbers we've been looking at, which is below 2% in the third quarter. And I agree with Steve that there is some domestic demand out there, and we do have aggregate consumer income. Although the wage numbers, they still held up. They weren't great year over year. They're a little above 2%. That's still not what we'd like to be seeing, absolutely. But these numbers really do underscore that if the Fed had moved earlier, we would be even in worse shape today. There's no cushion in monetary policy. That is not how it works. That just isn't how monetary policy works. And I think that's really important.
I think this number proves that the Fed's policy has been a complete failure in generating anything sustainable in terms of growth, job creation, and so forth. And it's the Fed's policy that, in my opinion, is actually a roadblock to a better economy rather than a facilitator of it.
And in other words, we've been at this for so long with interest rates where they've been in QE and everything else, and all I get is 142,000 jobs?
Exactly. I mean, one of the main goals of monetary policy is to pull forward behavior. Well, almost 7 years at zero and all this QE, we pulled forward a tremendous amount of behavior. We've also levered everybody up. I mean, that's essentially what lower interest rates does. It encourages you to borrow. And we've reached a lot of limits here.
Bring up the one-year chart.
And we've killed savers.
I'm actually fairly bullish, so I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
8 bulls out of 10 bulls. All right, Tom, why is that? What do you see that other people aren't seeing?
Well, you know, a lot of times how markets react to earnings has to do with expectations. And we were in Boston earlier this week. People are expecting a horror show for 3Q. So I think expectations are absolutely low. There's other things to consider. The dollar isn't as strong as it was early this year, so it's going to start to become a tailwind as companies talk about visibility. Oil stabilizing. But you really have to remember, the dollar, using FireEye data, robbed about $85 billion from the S&P earnings this year. That's about $10 per share headwind. And in the first half of next year, about half of that reverses. So dollar is going to start to become a tailwind next year.